PowerPoint. You are required to use Slideware. Can't call it PowerPoint because that's copyrighted. But you're required to use some form of Slideware, whether it be PowerPoint, Keynote, Google Slides, Prezi, some form of Slideware for one of your 4 speeches. So you have to use PowerPoint at least once. Have any of you heard the phrase death by PowerPoint?
Yeah.
We've all sat through really bad PowerPoint presentations, right? No, that ends today. PowerPoint is my big pet peeve. It's my research interest. And so we're going to talk about the science of PowerPoint, and whenever I mention that, people's eyes glaze over like, there's science in PowerPoint? It's like, oh yeah. There's a lot of science in PowerPoint, and people get really freaky about it, right? Because people have no lives. So I'm going to teach you the 7 things that people always do wrong. Please, please, please don't do them, and you will look like a total master. You want to control PowerPoint, don't let PowerPoint control you. So these are Slideware. So these are the 7 faux pas that you should never do when you're doing PowerPoint. So first faux pas is information overload. Providing us with too much information. Now to illustrate my point, I'm going to use an actual presentation from a friend of mine. I changed her name to protect her innocence. She is amazing. When I think of, if I looked up leadership in the dictionary, I would see her picture. Brilliant, brilliant woman. Fundamentally changed how we practice medicine in the US. Worst PowerPoint presentation ever. Great speaker, worst PowerPoint. So this is an actual PowerPoint presentation that she made to the Colorado Medical Foundation, or Medical Society. And so she got up, she had a half hour to talk to this large group of clinicians, and this is her first slide. What's your reaction to her first slide?
Holy moly.
Right? And I just realized that I'm doing something that I'm going to, in a later PowerPoint, tell you not to do, which is, I hope there are speakers in this room. Because this is my reaction.
Next slide, please, D-Day.
You don't want people throwing beer cans at your PowerPoint. Because you're standing up here, you're likely to get hit. Right? But when she had that thing pop up, she had a 30-minute presentation, she had 48 slides, that's the first one. When that popped up, it's like, boom, right? I'm done. I'm not going to listen. She did a lot more that solidified that fact, but rule is limit what we can see, what we can focus on. Don't overwhelm us. And if you have a complex diagram like that, what you want to do is what they call a controlled build, where you control what we see and then build off of it. So you would start out with just the base, right? And then as you're talking, you would introduce one subject, talk about it, then introduce the next one, talk about it. So we can see things build, and then you talk about each one in turn, right? And then as time goes by, it all kind of builds up together, and by the end, it all ends up with where you started, or what was on this slide the first time, right? There were 14 slides in that sequence. This is the first slide of 48. She has 30 minutes. What are the chances she's going to go through and be able to cover all of that? No chance whatsoever. Right? And I know what this means because I did contract writing for them. I wrote their funding proposals and everything. After a few proposals, we got this down to where we could explain what was going on here in 5 single-spaced pages of well-honed type or text. If it takes you 5 single-spaced pages of well-honed text to explain a figure, what does that tell you about what you should do with that figure during your speech? You need to dump it.
Nope.
I mean, you can't explain 5 single-spaced pages, period, let alone first slide out of 48. Get rid of it, right? It has no value other than to make us want to die, right? Or check out and go somewhere else. So this was her first mistake, was she had that. But most of the time we're not having something complex, but we'll just have bullet points like this. So we want to use the animation feature to create the bullet points that allows you to control when we see them. So this is what this screen looks like in PowerPoint. So there's a tab called animation. Animation controls when something comes up and how it comes up. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but I have everything zoomed. The science shows that you want your text to come at the audience in a zoom. You can have it come up, down, spin around, do all sorts of fancy things. All of those will confuse an audience because they're trying to read, when they see words, they're trying to read it. But if it comes at you, it's not moving away from you so you can actually process it. I changed the duration to 1/4 of a second because that's what the research shows, because that's just fast enough to catch your attention, like, hey, something's moving. But by the time you're like, hey, something's moving, it stopped moving and you can actually start reading it. Has anybody ever noticed that every line comes zooming at you? Most of the time, no, because it's not like flipping around and doing all the stuff that detracts from what I'm saying. It's just enough to catch your attention, saying, hey, here's the next point, right? And then we're off and running to the next point. So use that animation feature to control what we see, right? So it's basically a layered build of your text. Okay? So that's faux pas number 1. Faux pas number 2 is writing your speech out on your slides, right? So this is what the other 47 slides look like. Right? So she had all this information because she wanted us to have all this information. Unfortunately, she shot herself in the foot again because she wanted us to have that information. She put it all on handouts and then handed everybody a copy as they walked into the room. And so she's doing her meet and greet and, thanks for coming, and, handing out this stuff. And we're like, oh, great. I mean, she's sitting there thinking, I put lines on the side, you can take notes, right? We get the handout, what do we think?
I don't have to listen.
I don't have to listen, right? I'll read this when I get back to the office. And so we pull our phones, start checking our email, right? And so nobody's listening to her. And who's gonna read it when they get back to the office?
No one.
No one.
I've already
Right.
heard it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. I think I've heard it.
Yeah.
I tell myself I've heard it, I really haven't. I was there, let it go in one ear out the other, but, And so, unfortunately for her, she was not only wanted us to have the information, she was trying to get doctors to change how they practice medicine, basically do a 180. Doctors don't like change at all. I mean, they won't even like that. So to get them to do a 180 that was asking a lot. But so she was trying to get them excited about this. So she was excited, right? If we just read this at the office, will we get excited by reading this?
No.
This has none of her energy to it, right? In fact, Microsoft, this is what I heard. Microsoft got so many complaints about people doing this, where they write their stuff out on PowerPoint, then print it out and hand it to people and then expect them to read it, that they got so many complaints about that they actually invented another software product to eliminate people from doing this. They call it Word. So if you want us to have a lot of information, write a Word document, hand that out after your speech, and then spend your speech persuading us, you should read this paper, right? But she, again, shot herself in the foot. So she already got 2 strikes against her. So the rule is 5 by 5. You're allowed to have 5 lines, no more than 5 words per line. This is the same rule as your speaking notes. You're allowed 5 note cards, no more than 5 words per card, for the exact same reason. So this is one of her cards, or one of her slides. Why did she underline these things?
To try to make them look important.
She's trying to draw attention to it. What's your attention drawn to? The tacky stop sign. Right? So, if you follow the 5 by 5 rule, it took her a long title, shortened it, and then using the animation feature, because on this slide are exactly the same things that she had underlined, but I have them animated, so you can't get ahead of me. When I'm ready to talk about non-physician team members, we can talk about it. When I'm ready to move on, I hit the button, and now move on, to planned encounters. I get to control exactly when you see everything, right? And so, exact same words that she had underlined, but isn't this easier to follow and easier to see where we're talking about than what she had? And so, you just piecemeal feed us, spoonful at a time. So, And when I say five words max, I mean 5 words max. There's a reason for that. Award you there would be a test. So we're going to do a little test. This is not like the gorilla experiment, but I want you to count the number of dots as fast as you can, and then shout out the answer when you have it. And don't just assume that when somebody shouts out the answer that that's the correct answer. You know, you have to participate. So everybody, you know, as soon as you got the answer, shout it out. Ready? So first one.
12.
Okay. Next one.
8.
Okay. Next one.
5.
Why'd that one take so much less time? Okay. Okay. We think that, oh, there's fewer to count. No, we don't count. Actually, if we see 6 items or less, we don't count them. We see them and they pop. You're like, that pops up and you're like 5. You don't go, there's 3 plus 2, that's 5. Right? It's just 5. And so, like I said, the research says it's 6 items, we can pop things. But because we're dealing with multiple syllables, I've shortened it down to 5. So, you know, 5 things or 6 things we can process in 0.2 of a second. It just pops, boom. You know, 1 through 6, same amount of time. Doesn't matter how many there are, 1 through 6, 0.2 seconds. If there are 7 or more, we have to count them, and it becomes a minimum of 1.5 seconds, and then it gets longer or more time for the more things there are to count. And so, you know, it took you less time to do the 8 than to do the 12, but it took you a minimum of 1.5 seconds. So when you've got something that's, you know, more than 5 words on your PowerPoint, there's 1.5 seconds or more that the audience is sitting there reading what's on your slide. What are they not doing when they're reading your slide? Listening to you, right? But when it just pops, right, 5, right? We're like, oh yeah, got that. 0.2 of a second, that's like a pause. That's less time than what those things come at you. And so it's not that big of a deal. Why do I have you only allow you to have 5 things on your index cards? Because if you have more than 6, right, where you have to read it, it's going to take you a minimum of 1.5 seconds of you standing there going. My second point is, right, versus if it's just got 5 words or less, you can write them nice and large, you can set them out on the table. You can be halfway across the room and like just drop your eyes and you're like, oh, that's what I was going to talk about next, and you start talking about that. You don't have to sit there and spend 1.5 seconds or more reading your cards. It's just, it's there, it pops. So we're going to do it again. This time I want you to pay attention to how you're feeling. So different dots, but pay attention to how you feel when you're counting them. So the first one.
11.
Okay. Okay, next one.
4.
Did you feel the difference? How did 11 feel when you're trying to count them fast? Like, oh, 11, right? You know, and then this pops up and you're like, 4. No stress whatsoever. Do you want your audience going, or do you want them going, 4? 4.
What I felt
right?
was lack of confidence.
With the 11.
With the, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna do it one more time. So again, pay attention to how you feel. So first one.
12.
Okay. Last one.
1.
This is what a photograph is. When we see a photograph, it's like 1. You put a picture up on PowerPoint, it's like, boom. It just, we take it in. There is no effort involved in processing a picture, right? So pictures are fantastic in PowerPoint. So, you know, that's why I say, you know, you're only allowed to have 5 words on your cards, only 5 words per line. So that's faux pas number 3, or 2. Faux pas number 3 is reading your slides. This kind of goes along with faux pas number 2. So if I'm up here and I'm saying escalating prevalence of chronic illness has changed the work of primary care, assuming you are still paying attention, which is a very big assumption on your part, but assuming the audience is still paying attention, what are they doing while you're reading them that sentence? Well, that too, but assuming they're interested.
They're also reading.
They're also reading. And the average person can read inside their head twice as fast, at least twice as fast, as you can talk. So all you're doing by reading us the first sentence is slowing us down because we're already reading the sentences below that. So if you're just gonna stand here and read us your slides, do the world a favor and shut up. Just stand there, allow us to read this slide, hit the button, allow us to read the next slide. You're still wasting our time, but you're only wasting half as much of our time. Because we can go through it twice as quickly as you can. Right, so just shut up, just flip the screen, right, and then sit down. Right, so, don't read the slides, but, if you followed the rule, you shouldn't have anything to read, right? It's just 5 words or less. But the problem is, if you're up here, if you're like normal people, you're like, oh, I'll use PowerPoint for my thing, okay, escalating chronic illness, oh, man. And even though there's nothing on the slide, you'll spend the rest of your speech talking to the slide. Because this is not scary. You guys are. No offense, right? But, so as soon as you turn around, you're dead. Because it's so hard to ever turn back. I'm always, keep your back square to the wall, never look behind you. You want to look like a professional, just sit there and let it all happen behind you. If you never turn around, you just keep hitting the button. If you're like, I don't know what slide I'm on, just look over at the computer over here, right? And so, that's on the right side, and just keep going, never turn back around. Because it's like a no-look pass in basketball. If you watch basketball, someone's dribbling down the court and they're looking over there, and all of a sudden they pass the ball that way. Like, oh, wow, that was so cool. Same thing when somebody's up here doing PowerPoint and they just click it, and they never turn around. Because what you don't want to do is sit there and go, okay, right? Because the thing that the receiver for this is not in the screen. It's in the computer. If anything, you should go like that, right? But people are always, just let this, do with what you will with your hands and just hang on to it and just go through it, never turn around. So the rule is, copy what's on the slide to your notes, right? If you're gonna need notes for your slide, if I was doing index cards for these 7 faux pas, this is what I have on them, right? Put a 3, because this is the 3rd faux pas, so I'd have 7 cards. I'd lay them out, write it nice and large. This one is, about reading. The rule is don't, or copy it to your note cards. I'd lay all 7 out there. I'd never have to turn around. I can just sit there and talk to you, and just, go through and never turn around, just let it happen behind me. So that's faux pas number 3. Faux pas number 4 is, my wife's a speech therapist, I still can't do this, illegibility, which means we can't see it, right? So, anybody tell what this says? It's pretty hard, right? It looks great on the computer, right? So I'm making my PowerPoint, it's like, whoa, red and black really look cool together. Red and blue, or black and blue look really cool together. Well, that's great on the computer screen. You have to know that when things are projected on a projector, they wash out. This all depends on the projector. The projectors, these older projectors, this actually looks pretty good. You can't see it on this. From here, it's like I can't even tell there's anything on the page. But know that things wash out like this. If you got a big busy background, you try to put text on it, and we're sitting there going, huh, what's that? All that requires work. Remember, your job is to do all the work for us, because we only brought 2 calories to this fair. You're going to overload us if we have to go, huh, what's in there? It's easier to think about lunch. So the rule is contrast matters, not colors. And so if you've ever done photography, especially black and white photography, it's contrast. So they say that 8% of men are colorblind, 0.5% of women. There's going to be people in the audience who might be colorblind, and if you've used the wrong colors, they can't see it. So in PowerPoint, there's actually a button you can click that will turn everything to grayscale. And so it takes this slide and it shows you what it looks like in black and white. And when you see it in black and white, you're like, oh yeah, there's lots of contrast here. There's no contrast with the first one. And so that tells you there's going to be people in the audience who cannot see that first line. And so it's the contrast between your background and your font, not the colors. And so, always think, extreme. So black on white, white on black, or, dark colors on light colors. Not, hey, these two colors look cool together. Try it in black and white and see how cool they look. Sometimes they blur together. So, and size also matters, right? So, when you're sitting there at your massive, computer display, that 12-point font looks huge. It's because you got a massive display that you're sitting 6 inches from, projected on a screen, and it's tiny. You should never have anything smaller than 32-point font on a PowerPoint. I never have anything smaller than 44. If you're doing 5 lines, 5 words per line, you've got plenty of space. Blow it up, right? Make the words big because might as well fill it, right? So, make things nice, big, easy to read. And if you got very little contrast, it's really, really important that it's much larger. Coupon number 5 is running long or short. So this was, typical slide for her. She had 47 of these slides, 30-minute presentation. What's likely to happen? It's going to run out of time. To me, you can't read this out loud, 47 of these in 30 minutes, right? I mean, it's given she was going to run out of time. So the rule is 1 slide per minute. If you're going to have bullet points, you should have no more than 1 slide per minute. There's one exception to this we'll talk about later, but if I'm told I have a 5-minute presentation, 5 to 7-minute presentation, and I'm going to use bullet points, I will make myself 5 blank slides and say that's it. That's all I can have. Because if you start doing more than that, you have too much information. And then when you're practicing your PowerPoint, you want to make sure that you have a midway point. This is where you need to be paying attention to the yellow card. The nice thing about PowerPoint is it gives you structure. The bad thing about PowerPoint is it locks you into that structure. So when you've got a slide, you've got a slide. So she's up here, she's talking about stuff, and she said, oh shoot, we're gonna run out of time here, so let's see, yeah, let's talk about this. What has she now just told everybody in the room? The other stuff is not important.
Yeah.
So what can we assume about everything else that you've been saying? It's also not important. As soon as you skip a slide, boom, sit down. You might as well, don't waste any more of our time. If you start skipping slides, sit down, because we just dumped everything you said or are going to say, and so you're just wasting time. So you can't skip slides. So if you got a slide, you better be prepared to cover it, which is a good argument for keeping things simple. If I'm going to do the Miller Lite speech, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to do, tastes great, less filling, and it's cheap, I don't want to have a slide of tastes great, bullet points, less filling, bullet points, cheap, bullet points, because then I'm stuck. I have to go through those. So my first time anyway, I didn't have a simple PowerPoint. Had my logo and say, you should buy Miller Lite because it tastes great. And I'm telling you the story about how great it tastes, and I'm ready to move on to my second point, and I look down and I see, holy cow, 3 minutes have gone by. I've still got 2 points to cover. No problem. Miller Lite tastes great. All I have to do is say, Miller Lite's less filling, so you can drink lots of it, bust your move on the dance floor, and it's cheap. How long did it take me to go through my second point? Less than 10 seconds, right? But if I had a slide that had bullet points, I'm sitting there stuck going through each one of those bullet points. So it locks me in. This doesn't lock me in. It just says talk about this first, second, and third. So it gives me some flexibility. So simple sometimes can be a little better. So almost there. Faux number 6 is same old, same old. This is her file. But if she would have, back then they didn't have templates, now they have templates. So if you would have put this in one of the templates, it's so much better now. I wouldn't be making fun of it today, correct? I mean, how many times have you seen the standard templates used for a presentation? All the time. How many of them stood out in your memory and like, wow? None. So you see the same old template, what are we going to assume about your speech? Same old speech. Right? So don't use the templates that come with PowerPoint or any of the software programs. Find a different background. Right? Be different. So this is just a JPEG I found on Google. I did a Google search, typed in PowerPoint background, enter. And I just kept going through pages, and this one came up, and hey, this is kind of neat, because I could put the build thing here where it goes 1 through 7, right? This is bright, so I can do the, make a dark font and have lots of contrast. I kind of like this, so I just took it off of Google. Right? This is the one I typically use, and this is just, I took a photograph, right, and I started messing around in Photoshop, and played with it way too much, but when you see this now, if you see a presentation that has this background, what do you instantly think? Dr. Kessel's class, for better or worse. You see this, you think of this. Right? I have branded you, or branded myself. Right? It's never too early to establish your own brand. Your brand should not be the standard template from PowerPoint, because that just makes you like everybody else. If I can find something on Google, even the digital age, you can find far more on Google than I can. If I can come up with my own background, be creative, come up with your own background. It's never too early to start branding yourself and setting yourself apart from the template people, right? Because you don't want to be one of them, you want to be the top 1%. So, the other thing you can do to differentiate yourself are black slides. Black slides are really cool, and if you want to get maximum points, one of the things on all the forums is black slides, so you have to have a black slide in order to get points for that. Black slide is simply that. What happens when you see that?
Energy goes to you.
Yeah, because you're like, the projector broke. Right? If it's been the white slide, it'll be like, poof, right? And everyone's like, oh, wow. Right? And if you're standing here, like, move. Right? But when, this is not expected, right? It's like, hey, the thing is broken, and all the attention turns to you. But you're sitting there going, I don't want them looking at me, I want them looking at the screen. No, you don't. You want them looking to you, because when you put a black slide in the middle, all the attention comes to you. If you got a story to tell or something, have the black slide, boom, everybody turns to you, make the point that you're trying to make, then you can move on to the next slide, and you're back into your PowerPoint. And so all this is a slide, and I just changed the background to solid black. So this is the actual PowerPoint. So it went from that slide to just a slide, black background. And I like to build them in. I'll show you in a minute how you can do it without putting them in, but I build them in so that I know when it's coming. I set it up and I practice, and at this point, the screen's gonna go black, everyone's gonna look at me do this, right? So you have to have a black slide if you want maximum points. You should always have a black slide at least at the beginning of your presentation and at the end of your presentation. So if you got up and you're like everybody else, you get your PowerPoint ready, you relax and take a deep breath, and then you pose the question, how many of you like dogs? Right? And how many of you think dogs are better than cats? Do you think this is going to impact the response you get back from people? Right? So if you had a black slide at the beginning, it looked like this, right? And you come up, who thinks dogs are better than cats? Right? And get an honest response, right? And then you're like, you're wrong. Right? Cats are better than dogs. Right? So if you have a black slide, you may want to save this until you start your speech, or show it before you start talking, but at least you have the option by having the black slide first. Then you control when we get to see the title of your speech. You should also have one at the end of your speech, because when you get to the end of your slides, this screen pops up where it says, end of the slide. Right? What happens to the audience when they see that? You're done. So you start, okay, so what did I like about the speech? Right? Maybe you're not done. Maybe you're like, you're done with your slides, but now you're going to do your conclusion. Or you had something planned that you were going to do. No, we're done. Okay, we're filling out the form, and you keep talking. Why are you still talking when I'm filling out the form? Right? So this tells the audience that you're done. But if you have a black slide, even though it's just that little tiny script at the top, when this pops up, everyone looks at you going, screen is, all the attention comes to you, right? So if you put a black slide at the end, that will prevent, this from coming up. Unless you hit the button again, in which case you'll go from a black slide to that, and then people stop paying attention. So it's just one of those little polished things that make you look a little bit better than other people. So, last one, faux pas number 7 is the epic failure. Okay? Things that you don't want to have happen. You don't want to be this guy. I think those, I don't know how you call it computer music, because to me it's not music. But you know, you're at Red Rocks and they've got their little iPad or whatever, and they're making all these sounds, and all of a sudden, you know, you get the Java message. It's like, that's tacky, right? So you want to not have that happen, right? You want to be in control of the technology, not technology in control of you. So the rule is, try everything before you start, right? So, you know, first time you're like, oh, how do I use this, right, or whatever. It's fine. Your time and your grade does not start until you're like, and you start talking. You know, so if you're up here and like, I don't know how this works, you know, and I'll come up, I'll help you, we'll get things straightened out. That does not count against you. If you get up here and get nervous, hi, my name is Rich, and I'm going to talk about you, and you're like, how does this work? That counts against you, because that's in the middle of your speech. So make sure you figure everything out. So try it all. This is what on the touch panel, this is what it looks like. And so it'll be on, so you don't have to worry about that. You'll hit PC. If you hit PC, this screen comes up. If you're using the computer in the room, it's room PC. If you're using one of the other things, you know, cable, you hit that. But if you don't want us to watch you log into your email, if you hit one of these other 2 buttons, give it a second, it'll blink, and then it goes black. And so you can then pull up your stuff on the computer, get it all ready, and then when you're ready to go, you just hit room PC again, give it a second, it'll blink back over. Just know that every time that you switch back and forth like that, the volume resets. And so it resets down low. So, you know, we have to check in that room. Every room's different. But sometimes you have to bump up the volume a couple to make it, you know, just right. And so when we figure that out, you just know that, okay, when I go to hit room PC, you know, boom, 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 boom. So the volume is now set and you're good to go. But that's how that works. The clicker is pretty simple. You know, right button goes forward, left button goes backwards. I had to pay extra for the top button doesn't do anything, because I always had to mark people down for having a laser pointer, right? This one has the laser pointer, because if you have a diagram that's so technical that you have to have laser precision to point something out, you've done it wrong already. The only reason you need a laser pointer is because you love cats, and it's a great way to play with cats. And then if you are using PowerPoint from the computer, the bottom button works, not the online version of PowerPoint and not Google Slides, but if you're using PowerPoint from the computer, the bottom button makes the screen go black. So you can either build in a slide or you can just hit the bottom button. And then when you hit the bottom button again, or actually hit any button again, it just comes back. It doesn't move forward, it just goes black. Hit forward, it just comes right back to the one screen. So, you know, technically what I should be doing is, when I'm giving lectures, I should go, and someone raises their hand, I should hit the button, answer your question, and then come back to it. It requires way too much thought. Too old for that. But this is how the clicker works. You know, always check the volume. That's when I remembered this when I got in the middle of my presentation, that, oh crap, I didn't check the volume. Because you don't want to set up the joke, right? You know, so, you know, this is her first slide. What do you think when you see this? You know, oh crap, you know, how do I turn the volume? Because the joke is already passed, right? So you've lost it. So those are the 7 faux pas. You follow those, and you are better than, you know, 99.9% of all people. But, you know, to boil it down to 3 things, because I always say 3 things is most. So I have my per click rule. So these are the 3 things. One of 3 things should happen every time you hit the button. And if something else happens, you did it wrong. First thing, 5 words or less should come up, right? If it's more than 5 words, you did it wrong. And this reminds me, it'll pop, you know, you'll see the animation. So either the 5 words or less will pop up, an illustration or a picture will pop up, and if the illustration is complicated, it should just be the next build on that illustration, or a black slide. One of those 3 things should happen every time you hit the button. If something other than one of those 3 things happens, you did it wrong. And as always, simple works. I don't overcomplicate things. Questions?
Can you go back to the 3 points?
Actually, it's already on Blackboard. I put the PowerPoint up with the, just the PDF version of each slide. That's what I've always been putting up. But I've also put up the actual PowerPoint file. So if you have PowerPoint on your computer and you want to see what it looks like behind the scenes, this file is actually on Blackboard. I have it set to turn on while we're in class. So you can actually pull this file up and see what all the things I did to it and so forth. Yeah.
If you have a quote that's longer than 5 words, what should you do with that?
I would not put it on your screen. What I would do is, you're probably not going to be able to have it memorized. And I don't have a note card with me, but let's pretend this is my note card.
Excuse me, what was the question?
What should you do if you have a quote that's longer than 5 words? Because if you put it up on the screen, we're going to read it. And we didn't come here to read. We came to listen to you. So I would not maybe put a picture of the person who's doing the quote. And since it's longer than 5 words, it won't fit on one of your note cards, but I would dramatize the fact that this is long, I'm going to have to read it. I wouldn't say that, but Ben Franklin said, and boom, picture of Ben Franklin, and then sit there and draw attention to the fact that I am reading you this quote. And then you can go back to, talking to us. Don't sit there and try to, Ben Franklin said, and try to fake it, because you're not going to pull it off, so dramatize it. Let me read you this quote. That's how I do that. Other questions?